Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday night edition of the Joe Quill Show. I'm that guy, Joe Quills, whether you like it or not. You can tell it's going to be a it's going to be a fun night when I'm already joking around. We're only 10 seconds after the music. But anyway, it's got a good show here tonight here. Going to be mixing things up here with different things here. Um, Going to talk a little hockey at the start. Four Nations Cup on Thursday. I gave you my opinion last night, and we'll go a little further. Got some Joe Buck news that we'll talk about here. I'm actually excited for it. I'll be working that day, so I won't be able to really watch and pay attention. But you know, but the Mets owner admits that his spending was not optimal, so hopefully it'll be a big crash. Um, we have a Vlad Guerrero update. Um, the burglaries and robberies that have been occurring from sports athletes hits the MLS. I know MLS, come on, but you'll see why in a second. Um, the story that I tabled from last night, um, Caitlin Clark's agent was talking about how the WNBA needs to be paid more. We'll get into that. And interesting story here that um, uh, may happen. Who knows? But Kyrie Irving wants to play for Australia in the 2028 Olympics. So we'll see what happens there. And anything else that comes up along the way, let it be known in chat. I will see it. I'll highlight it, kind of like how I highlighted this at the start of the show that we are live, and we'll go from there. So lots of fun here, and also in a little bit I will give you an update on also eligible on Saturday because this is why I'm glad why things update like 5 6 days in advance, because when they zig I zag and I can go like that. So we'll see what happens with that as well. So um but yeah, we'll get everything going here, and it's pretty cold here in Philadelphia today. It was only in the mid to upper 20s today. Parks canceled. um I was laying in bed. I was like, I just don't feel like getting up. I think it got up to 27 according to my phone here. So um, it was windy as hell, and I saw uh, friend of friend of also eligible Jessica Paquette tweet that um, Tuesday's card was canceled, and I also saw the alert on Instagram from Parks. And I was like, okay, I got another article to write. So we did get that article from Turf Paradise. It didn't win, but I'll give you my news for my update on um, also eligible later on in the show here. I'll make a wait for it. But good day here today. Cold, but it could be a lot worse. We could have about 3 4 feet of snow, but we're also dodging a major bullet because the snowstorm that was heading our way originally as of last week. And this is why um, you don't take weather forecasts seriously until like 2 3 days out, because things can change so much in a 24-hour period. I mean, even when it's hurricane season, we can't predict where a hurricane's going to move, because you think you're going one way, then it goes the other way. But um, but they were saying that we're going to get a big snowstorm this week, either tomorrow or Thursday. Well, that storm's tracking further south, and like Carolinas and Virginia, that area's going to get pounded with snow, but we're not getting anything. Um, so those early predictions, and mind you, if you scroll down and you do some digging on the Apple weather app, you know, unless you're 24 to 48 hours away from an impending snowstorm, take that take that accumulation possibility with a grain of salt because they were saying 13 to 16 inches, blah blah blah. I'm like, well, and we're talking to whomever. I say, they're saying 13 to 16 inches here, but remember that's a week from now. Things can change, and trust me, it did change because we're getting squadouche. But anyway, so let's get it here. Let's get it going here. And since we're talking about cold weather, what game do you play outside in the cold? Hockey. And I gave you my piece last night with how I feel about what Americans need to do on Thursday night, and that's boo the living crap out of the Canadian anthem. And we'll see if that happens or not. I'll be tuning in at the very beginning of the game just to see if that happens. And I get the feeling it's not going to happen because, you know, but then again, the rivalry's back, and they booed us, we booed them. But we are the um, we are the evil empire right now, so to speak. Um, so it could be that you do have a lot more booing here from our side of the world here. And I'm trying to turn the TV down. It's not working for me. So let me do this. When in doubt, um, there we go. So we're all set there. So, um, of course, Bill Guerin, who's the general manager for the U.S. team in the Four Nations face-off tourney, um, he said he would welcome a visit from President Donald Trump on Thursday between the United States and Canada. Bill Guerin was on Fox News. Um, Not sure if it was today or yesterday, but probably today. Guerin said on Fox News that Trump's presence would give a boost to the rivalry between North American hockey powers. And this is one of the top rivalries in sports right now, USA and Canada, even before all the rhetoric from Donald Trump. I think we can agree with that. Um, he he credited Trump's tariff threats and the talk of making Canada the 51st state with ratcheting up the intensity of their fight field matchup in the preliminary round. So Guerin said, "We would love it if President Trump was in attendance. We have a room full of proud American players uh, and coaches and staff. Listen, we're just trying to represent our country the best way we can. But guess what? You lose 7-1 to Canada on Thursday night. Donnie's not going to be happy, let me tell you, uh, if he even knows what hockey is. Um, Tournament marks the return of the top hockey stars to international play after they sat out the past two Olympics, and hopefully they play in 26. We'll see if that happens or not. But um, now the US beat Canada 3-1 on Saturday, as I mentioned last night, and I mentioned the whole anthem thing and all that. There were three fights in the first 9 seconds of the game. Um, the quality play, um, the intensity of emotions, and geopolitical backdrop has drawn comparisons to the Americans' miracle on ice victory over the Soviet Union at the 1980 Lake Placid Games. And you remember the big bad Russians, the Soviets, and we know what happened in 1980, and what some people don't realize is that matchup wasn't the gold medal matchup. You had to win another game before they got the gold medal. So, um, and Guerin said, I think there's a little bit of a political flair to it. It's just the time that we're in. If you let it get the better of you, then you're in trouble. But I think the players use it as an inspiration. Now, the one thing to remember, and this is why I think Donald Trump will not be there, but I may be, I'm probably going to be wrong. I'm wrong more than I'm right. I admit it. Um, since his inauguration last month, because it's almost a month now, Trump has attended the Super Bowl and NASCAR's Daytona 500. So the way that I'm thinking, and I may be wrong, and it won't be surprised if I'm wrong because stuff happens. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump's there, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's not there either because if you think about it, and we said this last night, Louisiana for the Super Bowl, that was a red state. Daytona 500, red state. So he's he probably still thinks he's got another term to run. I mean, who knows what he's thinking? But you know, he's appeasing his supporters and he's still campaigning like he has another term. But I don't know if he actually does this, but it will be interesting to see if it does happen. I mean, I mean, it would also be interesting to see how the crowd reacts to him because the thing to remember is this isn't going to be a matchup where it's 19,000 American fans or whatever uh, TD Garden holds. This is going to be a mixed crowd. You're going to have a lot of Canadians there. Or as I said, joking around on Facebook, trying to get somebody to stir the pot. Try to stir the pot with some people. Canadian illegals and stuff like that. Trust me, I do that stuff on Facebook, but I know not to do it on Twitter because Twitter is a rotting cesspool. I mean, the only reason why I'm still on Twitter is I use it for the horse racing stuff that I do and occasional sports stuff. But um, but yeah, I mean, I don't think it's intentional that the sports rivalry got jacked up another 20 notches. It's just a consequence of what Trump wants to do in the White House. And like I said um, last night, if you're not going to boo on Thursday night the anthem, you know, it has zero effect in a regular season matchup. Like for example, when Edmonton comes to Philadelphia on Saturday, I believe it is. And why is that? Well, if you think about it, um, the the you look if you were to look at the roster of the Edmonton Oilers, and I didn't, I guarantee you that there's some players on that team that are not Canadian. So if you're going to boo the Canadian anthem with Edmonton players there, just remember you probably have a couple of Americans there, a couple of guys from Europe, a couple of guys from Russia. You know, you name the country, you probably have a guy or two from there. So it would defeat the purpose, in my opinion. At least that's what I think. But you know, but but the one thing I will say is that I give credit for, and I said it to Mike last night, and I don't know if he actually went into a YouTube hole last night. Um, when I a couple of times I saw this for the NHL final and or the Stanley Cup final, and I mentioned it a couple of times this past summer when the Stanley Cup final went to Edmonton. I said to I said it on my Facebook. I might even said it on Twitter, but nobody wanted to respond. Shockingly, I said that Canada has much more pride in their country than we do as Americans. But Mike said, sometimes it's, how you act when you do it. But, but the thing is with me, I see a lot of fake patriotism here in the United States. And I've said it quite a few times, and I'll say it again. You'll see people wearing red, white, and blue on Memorial Day. You'll see it on the 4th of July. Well, wear that patriotic shit on a random Tuesday in April or a random Tuesday in August. That's when I know you're patriotic, in my opinion. Whether I'm right or wrong, I don't care about this part. But but I just think that Canadians are much more patriotic and more proud of their country than we are as Americans. But the thing is, I will tell you one thing. When I criticize the United States for something, it isn't based on political stuff. It's just based on people in general and how they, just act like a total idiot. And, it's just really frustrating that we are this land of opportunity that turned into a land of handouts, in my opinion. But that's a topic for another day. Be interesting to see if Trump does go to Boston. I don't think he does, but But then again, when does he sleep? Because he's always on True Social and Twitter and all that other stuff. So, um, but um, but Bill Guerin did invite Trump. You know, I couldn't care about whether he's Democrat or Republican or whatever. I don't care. Obviously, he's acting like a Republican if he was on Fox News, but whatever. So, um, I did see this today as we get away from that political spectrum here and we get to Americana, baseball, our game. And a fairly familiar voice will call opening day on ESPN. And I don't get the hate for Joe Buck. Well, actually, I understand it. And, especially when Harry Callis was still alive. Oh, we want to hear Harry Callis, blah, 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 blah. But the one thing is, with the local telecasts that we watch, and I would say 162 games, you have about 150, let's say, that are locally televised, let's say minimum, and I mean regular season. And you can listen to any game on regular TV, on your local radio broadcast, and that will be biased towards your team because they're paid to do so. But with Joe Buck, he was he always seemed to be rooting against your team. And I got it. It would annoy me once in a while, but when I really thought about it and started to go against all these people that were claiming that Joe Buck was against their team, I said, well, think about it. Your local telecasts that you watch, whether it's baseball, you know, basketball, hockey, football just has a national television thing unless you listen to the radio with the TV sound off, which doesn't really work anymore. Um, you can definitely you can definitely see the argument that people have that Joe Buck hates their team, which isn't the case. Now, maybe it's because the Eagles won the Super Bowl, but Mike Tirico, um, Kevin Burkhardt, I think he did both games. I think he obviously did the NFC Championship game. He did um, he did the Super Bowl, obviously. I don't remember if they did the first game or not, probably because I was too busy paying attention to other things. But you do have, you know, and maybe it's because the Eagles were winning, but I guarantee you there wasn't much argument about Mike Tirico, Kevin Burkhardt, and if there was another guy doing the first game. I think it was Burkhardt, but I'm not sure. I don't remember off the top of my head anymore. But I guarantee you there was very little argument because guess what? Our Eagles are winning and they're excited. And Mike Tirico was extra excited when Saquon Barkley dashed 60, 70 yards through the snow to ice the game, which almost wasn't iced. But you do have you do have to realize that sometimes it's about the moment and not necessarily about your team. And I know a couple of my friends when I mentioned Joe Buck, um, I have no problem with him calling games. And I know at least one of my friends on Facebook actually went to college with him too. I think he's the guy that says it. He says, I don't get the hate for Joe Buck. I don't get it either, but I kind of do because, especially with baseball, you have so many games and you're so used to your homer home team announcers that if they even teeter towards um, being neutral, oh, they're against us. But I mean, it was also the Yankees announcer. What the hell's his name? Michael Kay. Yeah, Michael Kay. Yeah, when he called the 2022 wild card series, Phillies against the Cardinals, I thought he did a great job, and it was pleasing to me that he was neutral for the most part. I'm okay with a neutral announcer, but when you're double jerking the other team, then we have problems. But Michael K in 2022 is pretty good. Um, I think he called 2023 as well. 2022 he did with A-Rod, but I think he did 2023, but I don't remember who. But I really like Michael K when he did the 2022 series with the Phillies against the Cardinals. So, um, but the thing is, you think, oh, he's a Yankees guy. He's not going to like the Phillies. Come on. If they're neutral, they're against us. Come on, grow up. It's the heat of the moment. And like for example, the 2008 World Series, which I still watch Game 5 from time to time, I think sometimes you realize that when you're a veteran announcer like a Joe Buck, like Joe Garagiola in 1980 with the Phillies, what you want to get is the crowd reaction. You don't need to talk that much. Let the fans do the talking for you. And that's what you do. Some of the best announcers know when to shut up, and sometimes they just get into the excitement because, like I saw, Giants and Giants in Kansas City from 2014. They played the final out on, I think it was an MLB Network or it was a story about Joe Buck. I don't know, but Might have been on ESPN's website when I was doing my research today. You could see he was really excited over a pop up because Kansas City had the tying run at third base. So, you do have moments where you're going to sound like you are biased towards the other team, but it's all part of the excitement. So, I'm thrilled that he's doing this game. So, he's going to be calling his first game since 2021 on a national telecast when he provides play by play in the opening day game between Milwaukee and the Yankees. Buck's last national telecast was with Fox Sports in 2021 when he covered his 24th World Series with the network. He joined Chip Carey last year on the local broadcast of a St. Louis Cardinals game, and that was a one-off thing just for the local market. This is a one-time thing that he's planning on for ESPN because he works for ESPN now. Now he left Fox Sports in 2022 for ESPN, where he calls Monday Night Football. He referred to this opening day assignment as a one-off opportunity. And hopefully it's not a rain out because that would really suck for people like me that want to hear Joe Buck talk about baseball. He said it's not a permanent return to the baseball booth. Okay. I mean, it may be a kind of be like a Michael Kay situation where, other than the sidecast that they did for a year or two on ESPN2, maybe this is just a one-time thing, and maybe if ESPN's in a pinch, maybe he does do the wild card series because you had the Monday night game. Well, actually, it would not work because the series would start on Tuesday. He would be calling Monday Night Football, unless Monday Night Football, let's say, is in Philadelphia and the Phillies are playing in the wild card round. Hey, Joe, you want to something like that? Um, but so in the booth will be former Yankees manager Joe Girardi and Bill Schroeder or Schrader. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Um, he'll be the lead color analyst for the Brewers. Um, or he is the lead color analyst for the Brewers. Um, so the one thing Joe Buck said in a statement, opening day has always been a signature day on the sports calendar. And personally, it remains special. ESPN approached me with this one-off opportunity to help launch the season, and it was a quick yes. Joe and Bill are both great friends and better baseball minds, and I know they will carry the telecast. Well, I just plan to be along for the ride. And we may get Joe Buck messing up every once in a while because, it's the first time he's done a national baseball game in almost 4 years. But it may just be that it may just be like he's riding a bicycle, getting on a bicycle for the first time in a couple of years. You just get on there and you just start riding. Um, Now, Burke Mangus, the president of content for ESPN, um, added that Buck is synonymous with Major League Baseball, and his presence in the booth will be an incredible addition to our opening day coverage. And I agree. Even though most people do not like Joe Buck, I do. And I really think that he is going to be. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he calls a game more than a game, but not something along the lines of Sunday Night Baseball, where every Sunday night he does a game. I wouldn't be surprised if he calls one game in the first half, one game in the second half, something like that. But nothing that would be too hectic on his schedule. Um, um, Now, this game with the Yankees and the Brewers, it's an opening day doubleheader on ESPN, which will also air the defending World Series champion Dodgers hosting the Tigers at 7 p.m. So you have this first game, which will be at 3:30, I believe. No, 3 o'clock. So you have 3 o'clock game. I guess you'll have Sports Center slash Baseball Tonight, whatever, and then 7 o'clock. And then they'll go to LA. They'll have the ring ceremony probably, but like when the Phillies won the pennant in 2022. I don't think they had the ring ceremony on opening day. I know they didn't have the World Series on opening day in 2008. I remember after the 2009 season when they opened it up. So be interesting to see. And I hope Joe Buck does more than one game. But I mean, he's got kids with Michelle, Beisner, Buck. You know, it is what it is. And he may, maybe he does a game every now and then, which I hope he does because I think he's a much better announcer than what people give him credit for because of the fact that we are so ingrained in that if he's if he's dead neutral, he's against us. It's just the emotion of the game that he gets excited for your team or the other team. That's what it is. It's all a matter of making sure, you just need to realize that he's not there to purposely root against your team. But wouldn't surprise me if somebody said that. But um, before I get to my next story, I might as well let you know about Also Eligible. Also Eligible is the horse racing show, um, and it's Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do this week. Um, the reason is there's a storm approaching in the Midwest. So Oaklawn rearranged their calendar today. Um, they shifted the Friday program to Saturday. The Saturday program will be on Sunday, and the Sunday program will be on Monday. So, um, so they canceled training for Wednesday and Thursday, but they're offering a Friday afternoon session. By pushing the card back, the goal is to afford horses more time training ahead of the races. Um, but also remember, um, so forecasters are calling for sleet and snow in the area Tuesday afternoon with overnight temperatures projected to drop to 19 degrees. The overnight low Wednesday into Thursday will be 10 degrees, and Thursday night's low into Friday is projected to be 14 degrees. The high for all 3 days is expected to be 33. Sunday it's supposed to warm up and be 58. Um, and there's all kinds of ticket issues as well. Um, Now the one thing is, I mean, basically the way to take it is everything got shifted 24 hours later. Um, so the racing on Friday is now on Saturday, Saturday's now Sunday, and Sunday is on Monday. So the question is, do I move this show to Sunday? Do I do both shows, both Saturday and Sunday, or do I just have one? I mean, is or I just have the show on Saturday and just say, hey, these are my picks for Sunday. I because we've seen this flexibility, and also remember the reason why they're moving things around is because Oakland Park is in a national park, so they can't use chemical agents to treat frozen tracks and stuff like that. So they're giving a couple of days for things to warm back up. So, um, so I will make a decision by Thursday night what the script is going to be like. So, um, there'll probably be a show on Saturday. I don't know what I'm doing because it may just be one race from this track, one race from this track, one race from this track. I just have to see what the entries are for Saturday. But you do have a monster card, which is now on Sunday, which I don't want to do as um, I don't want to totally ignore it because that was what I was going to do on Saturday was Oaklawn. So I may do Oaklawn on. I may do a special Sunday show as well. So, um, and um, I know if I always suggest something to AJ, his answer is usually do it. Um, what do you think of this? Do it. What do you think of this? Do it. At least that's what I've gotten so far from him. There may be occasionally a situation where I don't know, but I usually get the do it comment from him. Um, so there will be at least one also eligible this weekend. It may be Saturday, it may be Sunday, or I may be doing two shows. I don't know. Great news is I got 48 hours. Great job. Great thing is I got 48 hours to figure this out. So, and hopefully the entries for Saturday will be completely out by tomorrow, so I can see like, okay, well this track has these races and this track has these, and go from there. So also eligible will be live this weekend. We just don't know in what form because of all the changes down in Arkansas. So we'll figure something out. So let's get back to what we were talking about here and all the stuff that's on here. Um, as we know, the Mets owner Steve Cohen wants a winner, and he paid a metric crap ton of money to Juan Soto, and truthfully, nobody's worth the money that he got. But Steve Cohen, um, Cohen said that he had a payroll budget in mind when the offseason began, but he had blown through that number by the time the players reported for spring training. Actually, I think he blew through that with the Juan Soto signing, if he asks me. Um, um, why he did that? Because I want a winning team, and I want to get the best team I can get on the field. Yeah, okay. But sometimes the best players aren't necessarily the ones you pay the most. Trust me, I've seen it many times in Philadelphia where we signed this great player, and then right down the toilet he goes. So, so the Mets' current projected payroll is approximately 325 million. Second in baseball to the LA Dodgers after an off season includes giving uh, Juan Soto the richest contract in pro sports history. That's well over the highest competitive balance tax threshold of $301 million, which comes with a 60% surcharge on every dollar spent over that mark, widely referred to as the Cohen tax. Even though LA does it too, um, it's in honor, quote unquote. I will add the quotes there, um, of the Mets owner. Now, Cohen estimated the Mets payroll will likely increase to around $340 million over the season, with other expenditures including in-season player acquisitions. Because remember, you're going to bring guys up from the minors. You're going to trade for guys during the season. You're going to sign somebody because somebody gets hurt. Things like that. Um, Now, the hedge fund billionaire. Now, Forbes estimates that he's worth more than $21 billion with a B. He can afford the investment. He just doesn't believe having payrolls that large will lead to sustained success. Duh. Cohen said, I can finance it, but is that the most optimal way to run a team? Probably not. No. because you get to the point where your payroll is so high, it doesn't even with even with even if you sell out every single game, the gate revenues of 81 games may not substantiate that payroll. And then you get into this supply and demand thing where um, if the tickets are too high, nobody's going to want to go to the games, even though you got a team that could contend for a World Series. Cohen said he wants to create a farm system to churn out young, cheap, and controllable talent under President of Baseball Operations David Stearns and avoid dabbling in free agency to upgrade the roster as often, which is how it should be. Um, there is no salary cap in baseball, but I will argue, especially the small market teams, they have an unofficial salary cap because they don't want to spend the big money. They can't afford the big money. They don't have the gate revenues. They don't have the TV revenues. And I still think that there's going to be a salary cap bubble burst or a salary bubble burst where all these huge salaries are going to go and maybe even bankrupt teams because guess what? The revenues just aren't coming in. But it'll be interesting to see what happens when the next round of TV negotiations comes around, whenever that is. But and also the collective bargaining agreement is up after this season, so probably going to hear some things over the course of a year where um, you're going to hear some negotiations along the way, or maybe they do maybe they do what my company at Redacted Company did with contract negotiations with my union. And this is a Philadelphia Union shirt, by the way. That's not a um, that's not a union, as in the union that represents me. It's just cold in this apartment tonight. Um, you know, you know, it may be that we may not hear what's going on. There may be a gag order. Who knows? Every negotiation is different. But I think that the owners are going to push for a salary cap. And I think even some of the owners are going to be against it because of the fact that um, some of the owners don't care what they spend. The Dodgers don't care. Or do they really care because they're deferring all this money into the future? And they got a crazy amount of money that they have in the future. I don't know about you, but it just seems like the Dodgers are just like, okay, well, let's just kick the can down the road here and we'll see what happens. Well, what happens 10 years from now when you can't sign certain players? I mean, probably won't happen because they'll just go and try to they'll try to do what they did with Otani and a few other players, and they'll just push it back, keep pushing it back, pushing it back. But um, but you know, I mean, without going too much into the collective bargaining agreement negotiations, I'm sure that I'll be talking a lot about this because I'm used to being not necessarily at the table with the other unions doing this stuff, but updating my coworkers. Hey, this is the latest update from so and so who got the information from the union or stuff like that. You know what I mean? So, and I think I think the best thing to do with most teams, and maybe this is out of necessity right now because you kind of want to have your young players not taking up that much money and then bring in a free agent that you think could be a guy that can plug in one of the holes that you need to win a championship. I mean, look at the Philadelphia Phillies in 2008. A lot of the guys were homegrown. Ryan Howard came through the farm system. Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins, um, Pedro Feliz was not, or was it Feliz in third? Pat Burrell was homegrown. Shane Victorino was uh, uh, um, a Rule 5 draft. Um, Jason Worth was a free agent, but he wasn't really a star free agent. Um, they didn't really have star free agents, but they had stars that they brought up through the system. They started winning together, and sometimes when you win together in the minors together, you win in the majors together, which they did. Cole Hamels was a guy that came up through the system. Um, Joe Blant was a trade. Jamie Moyer was a free agent. Wasn't that expensive. Um, Brad Lidge was a trade, but you get the idea. But if you get young players that aren't making that much money, if you want to get a star player to fill in one of those final needs that you need to win a championship, then that's probably the best thing, and that's probably what Steve Cohen wants to do. But I think he knows that his farm system isn't that great. I don't know much about their farm system, but I think over time he wants to build that back up because guess what? Alonzo may be gone. You don't know, you never know what's going to happen, especially with these 10, 15-year contracts. You never know. You may blow out your knee and that's going to cut a few years off of your career, and then you're retiring after 9 years and you're giving up six, or you're the team's still on the hook for 6 years, let's say. So, um, but like Cohen said here, I've always wanted to be more measured in payroll growth. I never get there. It's never quite there. I have the ability to spend if I have to. I want to win. I want to put the best team I can on the field, which makes sense. But, some teams like the Yankees of yesteryear, they were spending money like crazy and they were winning. And when one team does that, and you did have a couple, and even they had a couple of players that they brought up through the system. Andy Pettit, I believe, came through the system. Derek Jeter definitely did. Jorge Posada, Bertie Williams, Mariano Rivera, you know. But even then, you still had a lot of players that they bought in free agency. But you got to have the right mix of players coming through your farm system and then players that you have that you're buying through free agency or even through trades. So you gotta have that right mix in order to win. You can have 25 26 best players in baseball, but if you have 26 of the best players and they don't get along or anything like that, you're in trouble. When there's adversity, how are you going to react? That's the question. And we don't know what the Mets are going to do this year. I mean, we're only 2 days into full team workouts in spring training. Anything could happen. Now, Cohen ended his statement with, "But free agency is expensive. It's just the way it is. It's always more expensive than you can imagine." Yeah, because the way the free agency is and the way that baseball has done it, because they have no salary cap, it's always who's next. Now, I don't think we're going to get to a point where somebody's going to get more than $750 million like Soto got. I'm sorry, 765, but that's over 15 years, so it's over 50 million a year. Um, so nobody has a more expensive contract than Soto. Now it's going to count, his contract will count $51 million against the CBT payroll. Now they bookended the free agency by bringing back Pete Alonso for a 2-year, $54 million deal earlier in the month after prolonged negotiations, and he's got an opt out after next year, this season, so he can go back into free agency. Um, Alonso's going to make 30 million this season. He could exercise free agency again next winter and leave a hole at first base for the Mets. But with the next story I have, oh, by the way, you could have your new guy next year if you really wanted to. We'll get into that in a second. But Cohen does seem like he has. It seems like he wants to show fiscal responsibility, but he's spending like a drunken sailor. I mean, you really can't have too many long-term contracts because then you lose your roster flexibility. Agreed. Phillies are kind of getting to that point here because you got Trey Turner with a really long deal, you got Harper with a really long deal. I mean, you got some guys that are going to come off the payroll in the next year or two. Schwarber is a free agent after this year. Small Dick Nick Castellanos the following year. But and also you got a problem with JT Real Muto where do we get him out behind the plate? Well, you can't put him at first base because that's where Harper wanted to play. But um, but like Cohen said, I'll let my baseball people make that decision. The long contracts and stuff like that. For now, the Mets have a team that's expected to compete for the pennant after rebounding from a dreadful start to go on a remarkable run last summer before falling 2 wins short of the World Series. Um, Cohen expects last season's success and the addition of Soto to produce better attendance numbers at Citi Field after the Mets ranked 18th last season, which Cohen said he didn't like. I can't speak for why it is. I think a lot has to do with generally attendance lags performance, but I think there's always been a little skepticism with the Mets and believing they're going to be sustainable winners and sustainability in the playoffs. Well, I can tell you one thing. If you start winning, the fans will come out. And the fans won't give a shit that the prices are through the roof because you got to pay for those contracts somehow, and that's mostly at the ticket window. So you're going to have that issue. Now, um, but you look at the Phillies. It kind of started in 2007 when they made that miracle run to win the division, even though they lost two straight to Colorado. And by the way, Matt Holliday still has not touched home plate. Uh, but anyways, but they do have, um, you know, it, I mean, the Phillies had a sellout streak of like 400 and some games in a row, I think it is, and that figures out over 5 or 6 seasons. But when you're winning all the time, fans want to go to the games. They know that that's a place to be, and you know, you're not going there to see Shohei Ohtani, let's say, or Mike Trout, who I told you about that story last night. You're not going there to see these superstars come into town, like an Aaron Judge or um, the Dodgers, even though the Dodgers are, you know, And by the way, the Phillies play the Dodgers very early in the year this year at home. So that'll be interesting to see how they react to cold weather, for example. But um, but yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with baseball. The Mets, they have a ton of money here. Um, Now, one of the goals that Cohen said is to break the negativity and have them believe we're going to be a sustainable winner year in and year out. And they come to the ballpark and they enjoy it. The thing is, you just have to get you have to get sustain you have to sustain winning. That's what you got to do. And if you're not going to win, the fans are not going to show up because they don't want to spend money on a losing product. Plain and simple. So, so you definitely don't want to be um, you don't want to be sitting there um, on a cold April night complaining that your team is losing and stuff like that. You know, you want to be there even if it's cold that your team's winning. And especially in the summer because, even if you drink those 15, 20, $25 beers or whatever they charge now, I don't drink anymore, so um, by choice. It's not a alcoholism thing or. But, you know, the beers taste better, the hot dogs taste better sitting there in the middle of summer, a summer night, a nice breeze. Everything just feels that much better being at the ballpark. But if your team's losing, then it's not fun. And that's when fans don't show up. So if the Mets sustain their winning year over year, then you're going to have fans there every single night 40, 45,000, whatever their stadium holds. So it will be interesting to see what they do. But, you know, Steve Cohen put the money up. Now they have to win. And they're probably in the toughest division in baseball because the Braves are probably going to bounce back. Ronald Acuna, from what I heard from Mike yesterday, he was saying that Acuna is 100% right now, which is scary. Um, you also have the Phillies, who won the division last year. They've been to the playoffs. They've been to a World Series, but they are in that regression mode right now, where they went from winning the World Series to losing in the NLCS last year to 2 years ago, and last year losing in the divisional round. Well, that means either if that if the diminishing returns continue, then the Phillies either lose in the wild card round or they don't make the playoffs. And if that's the case, Topper's got to go. But because he got to a World Series, are we going to bow down to him like we do Charlie Manuel? I mean, thankfully, with Nick Sirianni as the head coach of the Eagles, we finally got a coach or manager that was not a fraud. Charlie Manuel was a fraud. Jimmy Williams was the reason why the Phillies won that World Series. Doug Peterson proved to be a fraud. That's why he was gone 2 years after the Super Bowl. But you do have um, probably the toughest division. I also won't rule out either Washington or Miami, even though Miami didn't spend any money. You know, they have their starting. Miami has their starting pitcher Alcantara, who missed the whole season last year. If he's back, maybe he does some damage. And Washington, they're maybe a year or two away from flipping this division upside down because they got a lot of good young players, and it may get to the point that I was describing, that you got all these young players on the field, and then no, and then no, and then sorry, uh, um, you get to the point where okay, well, we have our core players, our young players that are core players. Now we need somebody to teach them to win in September so we can get to October. That's what you have to do. That's what the Phillies did when Pat Gillett came in 2008. So Dave Dombrowski did in 2022, and that's what he's trying to do again this year, even though the payroll is high. So, um, but yeah, you got to make the right decisions, and if your farm system is shit, you're going to have to spend more money if you're really that adamant on winning a World Series, which the Phillies have done. Now the Dodgers, they have a great farm system as well. They're just in their own market. Yankees, their minor league is okay, I guess, but but that's the thing I say with Baltimore. Baltimore, in my opinion, and I have to see where they are with some things, but you have to bring in a piece or two to complement those players, those young players, and you're going to get to the point where they're going to have to figure out how to win. And like for example, if you saw like a Pete Rose interview about the 1980 Phillies, he said that he admitted he was the final piece, and he showed them how to win in September and how to win in October because Pete Rose had done it quite a few times. So that you got to get that you got to get that mix, and a lot of times you mix something up, it doesn't come out right. So, but I think Cohen has the right idea. It's just that he knows that his farm system isn't ready yet, so he can do what he really wants to do, which is bring in the young players and then pick and choose some players that will cost a little more. So, but now one player he could pick and choose from next year or next off season, depending on how things go with the collective bargaining agreement, which is up after this year, is Vlad Guerrero Jr. Now, Vlad and the Blue Jays failed to come to a contract extension by his Monday night deadline last night, and he's paving the way. It's paving the way for him to hit free agency. And he is only 25 years old. Um, Guerrero said today they have their numbers, I have my numbers, and maybe that his numbers are way up here. Toronto's like down here, and you gotta get to here. But with the fact that he doesn't want to distract, where actually he is going to distract the team because he may leave after this year. Um, you know, he doesn't want the distraction of playing. Doesn't want the negotiations distracting him. So Guerrero had set a deadline for Monday 9 o'clock, but the last call from the Blue Jays came at 10:30. When asked if the team was close to what he was asking, he simply said no. Now, how far apart they are, I don't know. Maybe if I really dug, maybe we would see that, but you know. But General Manager Ross Atkins, meanwhile, said the offers were very, very aggressive. I'm confident that we exhausted the communication, the ideas and thoughts, and communicated every dollar. The offers we made for Vlad would have been record setting and would have made him one of the highest paid players in the game. But the thing is, you got to remember as well, but Vlad isn't an American citizen, so he's probably paying Canadian tax, American tax, Dominican Republic tax, because he's playing in two different countries, you got double all that stuff. So without a deal in place, uh, Guerrero said he plans to cut off talks and play out the season as an impending free agent. But he also said later that he won't close the door on a realistic offer from the Blue Jays. So I guess what happens is, the Um, you know, Toronto will go to the agent and say, well, what about this? What about 500 for 10 years? And it may be because he's 25 years, 20, 25, 26 years old. He may want 13, 14, 15 years. Now, granted, he may not last that because of his body type because he's 6'2", 245. That may have a part in it as well. But he said he wants to be there. He wants to be a Blue Jay for the rest of his career, but it's free agency, it's a business. I'm going to have to listen to 29 more teams. They're going to have to compete for that. But the thing is, you have to remember his father. We all know his father, Vlad Sr. I mean, he can tell him what he experienced with free agency. Now he played in Montreal until he went to LA for the Angels. So you can say what you will. I think that his father's experience is definitely helping him here one way or the other. And the thing is, some people can handle dealing with the contract negotiations and some do not. And maybe this is just a ploy from his agent. Who knows? But whatever it is, whatever the reason is behind it, it could be. I mean, we could be sitting here in July. It's like, oh, by the way, Vlad Guerrero did get that new contract. Or we're sitting here in July. Well, he just got traded to the Phillies, or he got traded to the Mets, or he got traded here, he got traded there. Because he's not a 10-5 guy, so he can't veto any trade. And I doubt that there's any type of a trade, no trade clause in his contract with him only being 25 years old. But you never know. And also with the way the contracts are structured, even more now, it may be he wants the money up front and not kick down the road. But Toronto has had the history over the last couple of years of not being able to get the free agents to sign there. They heavily recruited Shohei Ohtani. They recruited Juan Soto. And they ended up with the Dodgers and the Mets respectively. And this could be the potential departure of their best homegrown talent since Roy Halladay. Now, Roy Halladay left on a trade, but it's still something that could really hit hard for Toronto because you're looking at possibly playoff opportunity going right down the toilet. And like I said, I don't know what the farm systems are like in all the teams, but you get the idea. Guerrero said that Soto's deal had nothing to do with his decision. Maybe. Even before that, I knew my value, I knew my number. But the thing is it the number his agent says it is, or is it truly his? Blue Jays knew about his deadline, and he didn't want negotiations carrying the spring training and become a distraction. Well, in a way, it's going to become a distraction for his teammates because it's like, do you want him to stay or not? Yeah, we want him to stay, but it's his decision. It's not a distraction for him; it's a distraction for the rest of the team, I would think. He said, I don't want, especially my teammates, to go through any distractions. Well, guess what? There's going to be distractions now. I'm here today. I'm ready. I want to win a lot of games. I want to make it to the playoffs. That's all. And who knows? He may have a great year, or maybe game 2 of the season, he blows out his knee and he's done for the year. He's gambling on himself, trying to get an even bigger deal. But he may end up doing something like this. You never know. Now, we do see this in other sports, and it happens in baseball as well. With an expiring contract like Guerrero, Toronto could explore a trade. And guess what? They're going to get a haul. They are going to get a haul of players and prospects. Um, it could be one of the biggest returns in recent memory. Um, uh, according to sources, Blue Jays are more inclined to start the season with Guerrero in their lineup and reassess the possibility of a trade as the July deadline approaches. Now, Ross Atkins, the GM, does say, "We feel like we have a great team. Vladdy is a big part of it, and Vladdy will remain a big part of it." The thing is, you get to July and you're not in the playoff race, you're definitely going to you definitely don't want him to walk away and you get nothing. Well, you'll get a first round pick because, you'll put the offer out there, whatever it's called. I forget what it's called now. The qualifying offer, like 21, 22, 23 million, whatever. So it'll just be procedural. Nope. And he goes to free agency. Toronto knows they aren't going to get him to sign it, but but he ends up going to free agency. They get a first round draft pick as compensation, but it is what it is. But um, but the thing is, with Guerrero's father playing in the game for as long as he did, he knows that this is a business. And I'm sure his agent told him that. I'm sure his father told him that. I'm sure his teammates said that. I love the city. I love the fans. I mean, it's hard, but at the end of the day, like I say, it's a business. I'll do anything that I have to stay here with the Blue Jays. I love it here. I want to be here. And I had to ban somebody there. So, and this is why, for example, why I do the behind the scenes work on Twitch for Bleacher Brothers, because stuff like that comes along and you have to report them. So I'm not trying to promote them. It's just like, hey, you want to FAFO, spam that shit because I will block your ass. So, um, so over his 6 seasons, Guerrero has developed into one of the game's most fearsome hitters. Last season, he hit 323 with 30 homers, 103 RBIs. Um, the big market suitors are expected to lavish him with some of the largest contract offers in baseball history, but you got the collective bargaining agreement expiring. So keep that in mind as well, because if he doesn't sign by the time Major League Baseball locks out the players, he's going to be waiting there. We're going to have a situation like in 2022 where everybody signs within 48 hours of it all being done. So, um, but um, but Toronto has tried to lock him up, but no avail. Um, also, remember, Bo Bichette also will hit free agency after this year. Um, Now, Bichette will play out the season. Is widely expected not to re-sign with the Blue Jays. The team had hoped an extension of Guerrero would give them a franchise player around whom they could build. Now they're expected to exceed the threshold of $240 million, 241. Blue Jays will field a team with playoff aspirations and one that just as easily could find itself toward the bottom of the standings. Of course, you got the Orioles, you got the Yankees, Tampa Bay. They could have a bounce back year with their analytics and all the shit that they do. And Baltimore, and also Boston, they may bounce back with the Bregman signing, and they may bounce back as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if all 5 teams are over 500 this year as well. But They had a bunch of misses with free agency. For example, this year, Soto, Pete Alonso, Max Fried went to the Yankees. Um, Alex Bregman went to the Red Sox. Um, but Toronto did get Anthony Santander for a heavily deferred 5-year, $92.5 million contract. And who knows? It may be that Toronto's trying to defer money, and Guerrero's probably saying, "No, I'm not taking that much money deferred. I want it now." So, but they also brought in Max Scherzer, 1 year, $15.5 million. They bolstered their bullpen with former Philly Jeff Hoffman and also pitcher Yimi Garcia, and they traded for platinum glove winning second baseman Andre Jimenez. Um, so they're trying to build around Guerrero. The problem is, will he stay there? Um, uh, Junior said, my dad played a lot of years and never won the World Series, and I always say that's my personal goal to win a World Series and give the ring to my dad. So that's all I'm looking for. He wants to win, which probably means he's not coming to Philly because guess what? That window is closing little by little here in Philadelphia, unless you bring in some young talent, and it may be that Andrew Painter gets to pitch in the majors this year. Who knows? Um, but he's also playing first base right now. But my concern is he's 6'2", 245. He could probably get away with that for a few years in at first base, but probably won't go well for him if he stays 6'2", 245. He might have to trim down a little bit um, as he gets older. Probably best to do that now, but it is what it is. So that is so he may end up staying. He may end up going. I don't know who his agent is, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's um, Scott Boras. So, but I wouldn't be surprised with that, and we'll see. But now, one thing I did see, this is a thing that's been coming up from time to time over the last few months, and even soccer stars are not immune to these robberies and burglaries that have been going on in the sports world. Um, LAFC striker Olivier Giroud lost approximately $500,000 worth of jewelry when his LA home was burglarized earlier this month. The LAFC forward and his family were not at the property when burglars broke in by smashing a window and stole jewelry and other items, including luxury watches belonging to the 2018 World Cup winner. And this is the same thing over and over again that you're hearing with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, Joe Burrow. It's something you're seeing time and time again. Um, now, the source said that Gerard's wife Jennifer reported the incident to police on February 5th after returning home and finding the items missing. Um, the 38-year-old, he's a former Chelsea and Arsenal star from the EPL. Um, he's in the final stages of preparation with LAFC for the upcoming MLS season, with the team kicking off against Minnesota United at home on Saturday. Now, the question I have is, and I know, for example, the Philadelphia Union, they train in Clearwater to prepare because it's too damn cold up here, and I don't think they have an indoor facility. Um, and it'd be hard to do an indoor facility because you would be training on artificial turf, and artificial turf is much faster than natural grass, and blah blah blah. Um, but That's the latest thing that has occurred, and I don't know if maybe LAFC went to, I don't know, Arizona somewhere, wherever they went for preparing for the season. And the thing is, even if you have the best security imaginable, somebody's still going to get through there. And in some ways, in my opinion, there's really not much you can do because the schedule's out there and you kind of have an idea when a team is going to leave and when a team's going to come back. Like, for example, baseball, hey, we know that the Phillies are in Clearwater right now. And they're going to be there until March 25th or 26th, and then they're going to go to Washington. And then after that, they're going to be home for the Phillies for the home opener. Well, guess what? You got a 6-week window if they really wanted to. And I don't encourage that, so don't clip that. So I will definitely say this. As much as you can prepare, you still have somebody who's going to find out where you live, and they're going, and even with social media and stuff like that, you're going to see, or even if you're doing public, uh, public outings, you know, you want to try to blend in as much as possible. I mean, like I said with the WNBA, which I'm going to talk about next. You have a woman that's 6'7" or whatever Brittany Griner is. If you got somebody that tall, you're not going to blend. This isn't like soccer where all the girls are usually the same height. I mean, you got some girls that are like 5'7", 5'9", 6 foot, and then you got 6'4", 6'7", 6'8". They don't blend, but sometimes it's hard to blend, even if you're an average sized person, because okay, well, you're dressing nicer than the other people in this at this outing, or you're I see that, oh, look at that, your post here on Facebook shows that very nice watch or that necklace or that ring or whatever it is. It's just that you have to be prepared for anything, and unfortunately they know ways of getting around security, and this is an ongoing thing. They're trying to crack the case, but for whatever reason it's just not happening. So, and it may be one group of people, maybe these may be mutually exclusive events that are occurring. Who knows? Because a lot of things, like you say it about the NFL, it's a copycat league. You say it about even crimes like this. Oh yeah, well, they're not. It's not the same group of people, but they learn from other things. It's like, hey, I can do that too. Watch this. So somehow they found out where he lived. They probably cased his a home, and they knew he was going to be away. And then they said, okay, well, we're going to go in. We're going to get his stuff, and then we're probably going to pawn it off, make money off of it, and do what we have to do. So, um, but yeah, it's a troubling thing, and hopefully they break the case. But I think that even if you break the case, this is still going to happen, and this is something that's been happening over the last year or two, and it's making you wonder: do you really want to be an athlete anymore? But um, now we haven't seen this happen in the WNBA yet, but um, the WNBA, they are making some good money, but not great money. Um, According to Caitlin Clark's agent, Erin Kane, She said it's not possible to fully compensate Caitlin Clark for what she's meant to the WNBA. Now she's not only saying that about Caitlin Clark, she's saying that about other players in the league. It's just that she represents Caitlin Clark, so but you don't want to solo her out on this. But um, now Kane also represents Defensive Player of the Year, Nafisha Collier, Arike Anabu- Anbugawali, and a host of other prominent athletes for Excel Sports Management. And I know I butchered that name. You know, I probably will have to watch a lot of WNBA so I can get some of these names right. And, the thing is, it's a more pure sport because it's more fundamental play as opposed to all three pointers and um, all 3 pointers and dunks. It seems, but um, so um, Kane said, "Will Caitlin Clark ever be paid by the NBA what she's really worth to that league? I don't think that's possible." I kind of agree with that because I think there's more to it than just a monetary value. But you got to do what you can do here. She's part of a larger player body. They all need to be paid more, so that's important. This isn't just about Caitlin Clark. She should be recognized for what she has done and what she brought to the league from an economic standpoint. It's simple as that. I agree. But the thing is, she came in near the end of a collective bargaining agreement where they weren't getting much because guess what? The eyes weren't on the WNBA like it has been last year. Because ratings went through the roof because they want to see Caitlin Clark play. And then, oh shit, this basketball is pretty competitive. I want to see Las Vegas play. I want to see the Liberty play. And I'm sure the Liberty ratings were through the roof because guess what? They won the championship. So little by little, you got to grow something. And they're pretty stagnant. They were losing money year over year, but the NBA was making sure that they were sustainable. They were helping them out. But um, yeah, and I agree, players should deserve to be paid more. But the thing is, their salaries are based on a collective bargaining agreement. So as of right now, that's what it calls for, and that's why they've opted out of that contract, collective bargaining agreement after this year, because they want to make sure the players get the money they deserve. Also, with new TV contracts coming in, because I got a 10-year deal coming in. Guess what? They're paying a shit ton of money. So that's $75,000 or whatever it is that Caitlin Clark made for for 40 some games. Well, she's probably going to make about 350, 400, and rightfully so. But it's not about it's not like, well, LeBron makes 50 or 60 million. How come Caitlin Clark only makes 400,000? It's called revenues. It's revenues versus your expenses. What you bring in and what you have to bring out. You're trying to make money, or at the very worst, end up with a zero balance ledger. You don't want to be running the team into the ground with bad economics, because guess what? Your team will not survive. And many of the teams early on did not survive because they were paying people and it wasn't working. But but Clark will be in her second year. She and the rest of the star-studded rookie class, they helped drive the most watched regular season in the WNBA in their 24 years and the highest attendance in 20 years. And Angel Reese, people wanted to see her play. People wanted to see Caitlin Clark play. It also helped there was an Olympic year. So now, an economist at Indiana University Columbus, interviewed by the Indianapolis Star, recently calculated that Clark was responsible for $36 million in economic impact to the city of Indianapolis and almost 27% of the league's economic activity for the 2024 season, including attendance, merchandise sales, and television. Yeah, because a lot of girls want to have her jersey. I'm sure even some guys want that jersey. Even if you don't wear it, you hang it up in the man cave. It's like, hey, I'm a fan of Caitlin Clark. Hey, Caitlin Clark signed this shirt for me. Something like that. But her salary is only going to be $78,000 this year, and that's part of the collective bargaining agreement. It's not the fact that they're purposely paying her a low sum of money. Even with me working at Redacted, you had the pay scales, and then when you have a new contract, it's like, okay, we're going to agree to 11% over 4 years. Okay, well, two and a half, two and a half, three, that's eight, and three and a half, 11.5, let's say, if you have a 4 year deal. Okay, that's the case with me at Redacted, for example, even though I made numbers up there. So it's important to note that WNBA salaries are collectively bargained and range from roughly $64,154 to $241,984 for a player on a super maximum contract. But remember, when they came up with these numbers were created at a time where the revenues weren't coming in. You didn't have all these people in the seats. You didn't have people wanting to see Caitlin Clark. You didn't have people wanting to see Angel Reese. You didn't have, you know, you didn't have the interest that this past season brought to the league for the first time. And the WNBA Players Association, they opted out of the current CBA last October, which they had the right to do, with the prospect of a work stoppage if a new deal isn't reached by the end of the 2025 season. The union said at the time the players are seeking a business model that reflects their true value, encompassing higher salaries among other benefits. And also remember, there's a new TV contract coming after next year, so that money's going to be coming in. So guess what? More revenues, share that money with us. That's why the union opted out. Um, Aaron Kane said the most important thing has always been getting the WNBA players paid for what they do on the court. I'm very hopeful for the CBA negotiation, and that'll be progressive and move the line forward a lot. I'm sure a lot of the players don't want to go international. They want to stay home. It's just that their schedule allows them to play internationally if they chose to do so. Now, there is an upstart league called Unrivaled, which is a 3-on-3 league. They're wrapping up their first season next month. They're paying its players an average salary of more than $220,000. Yeah, because you only got 40 players to worry about. But they also have an equity stake in the league, which I don't think the WNBA will offer. Kane says she thinks there's more equity for women's sports in the future, and the leagues are continuing to participate in and play in and build. Um, and like I said, with the media rights, last year WNBA announced an 11-year media rights deal valued at about 2.2 billion with a B, or $200 million per year, which is significantly higher than the 60 million the league currently gets. And I believe that's the 20 for the 26 season. So yeah, you see why the Players Association opted out of the collective bargaining agreement. Um, The WNBPA executive director, Terry Jackson, said last July the league is being undervalued in the deal, which is negotiated by the NBA, with Jones about 60% of the WNBA. And that's why when the league hasn't been making money, the NBA subsidizes it. Um, Aaron Kane said, I think we're ready for a spinoff from the NBA. I just think that the NBA is incentivized to make decisions that are good for the NBA, and they're not always aligned with what's good with the WNBA. And so, for the sake of the league that I work in, I want women and women's basketball to be able to make clean, clear choices that are in their best interests. And also keep in mind, cities want to get into the WNBA business. Philly wants to do it. I think Cleveland's getting a new franchise. Toronto has a franchise coming up. San Francisco has Golden State, San Francisco. They have a team coming in this year. So little by little, the WNBA is finally starting to grow. I say finally because this is their 25th year. And you're going to see a lot of growth here if they can get the right collective bargaining agreement done. And hopefully they get that collective bargaining agreement done and not have to lock out the players and players go on strike, because that's probably the worst thing that can happen for the WNBA when you have a major spike in interest in the league. It doesn't matter if it's Major League Baseball, it doesn't matter if it's NFL, it doesn't matter if it's NHL, it doesn't matter if it's NBA, it doesn't matter if it's MLS, it doesn't matter if it's Tiddlywinks. When there's a work stoppage, there are no winners. The players don't win, the owners don't win, and the fans don't win. So definitely keep that in mind, because I don't want to see, I mean, it's nice to change things up every once in a while and say, hey, hey, that's right, Caitlin Clark has a game tonight. Let's watch that game. Oh shit, we can't watch it tonight because guess what? They were locked out and they haven't negotiated the contract yet. But we'll see what happens with that, and hopefully, I mean, I'm hoping that they do resolve this, whatever their decision is. So we'll go from there. So, final story I have tonight. And I saw this, and at first when I saw it, it's like, why is he doing this? Then you read the story, it's like, oh, okay. Well, Kyrie Irving wants to play for Australia at the 2028 Olympics, which doesn't make sense at first, but once you realize a couple of different facts here, yeah, it does. Um, Dallas Mavericks star Kyrie Irving says he wants to play for Team Australia and hopes to gain eligibility in time to represent the Boomers at the 2028 LA Olympics. And, since we're, what, 3.5 years away, that's why you start working on this now. Because if you get the okay, then maybe, oh, by the way, I can play in these world tournaments here that Australia will be a part of a couple of times in preparation for the Olympics. It's not just the Olympics. Maybe he plays in whatever tournament there is out there that Australia participates in. You get the idea. But one thing I didn't realize is that he was born in Melbourne, Australia. So that would give him the right to play for Australia. Um, he was asked during All Star weekend whether he would consider making a switch from Team USA. Uh, and Irving told reporters Sunday, we're in the process of that right now. Just trying to figure out what's going to be the best route for me to be eligible. There's a lot of paperwork in between that. And it's also more complicated because he played on the 2016 team for the USA. So there is that complication because he represented the United States in Rio and helped the Americans win the gold medal there. But he did not make the last two teams, including the gold medal last year in Paris. Now, in order to become eligible, Irving would need to gain approval from USA Basketball, FIBA, FIBA, International Basketball Association, whatever it is, whatever it figures out to be, and Basketball Australia. I think what may be down the pipe for USA Basketball the next couple of years, it may be that they want younger players. They may project that, hey, 4 years from now, Kyrie ain't going to be playing like this. Yeah, he can play for Australia. Who cares? But because I think the complication may be, and if I'm wrong, feel free to tell me. One complication may be the fact that he played for the USA in 2016. At least I'm thinking that. So Irving would be 36 for the games in 2028, when he could potentially join Team Australia roster that features Dyson Daniels, Josh Giddey, Ben Simmons, Dante Exum, and Josh Green. Wait. Time out. Um, okay. They didn't use the word star. I thought they did. Because I was about to say Ben Simmons ain't a star anymore. He's a guy who, always gets hurt, always complains about things, hasn't done shit the last 4 years. I mean, you really got to be horrible the last couple of years if the Sixers won the James Harden Ben Simmons trade, despite the fact that James Harden left here in a pissing match because he didn't want to play here anymore. You know that you really have to be dog shit if your Brooklyn Nets lost that trade just because you went there. But um, so but just to let you know, Australia did win a bronze medal in 2020. They finished sixth overall last summer in Paris after an overtime loss to Serbia in the quarterfinals. So that is all the stories I have for you tonight. And also, just a reminder, um, if you miss this show, not only can you go and um, not only could you go and see um, not only can you watch after the fact unless YouTube takes my shit down, which they did last night because I decided to play Real American because I am a real American, but I will let you know. I'm showing you my Spotify here right now, and you can listen to the Joe Quill show as long as I remember to upload it. So um, I will upload these shows. You can follow on here. I prefer I prefer you go on iTunes or Apple Podcasts as they call it now, but wherever you want to go, subscribe, and if YouTube or Twitch takes it down, you still have this option. And this is a great option if you're in the car, because let's say we advance the show, we have more interviews and stuff like that. Well, guess what? You can listen to those interviews there. So that's another great option there. Look for my alternate logo for the Joe Quill show. But then again, who else would have a show names? Actually, I need to show this. So first, let me give myself one of those. And now we'll show it. You go to Joe Quill show, search that. That's the alternate logo I use for um, the audio podcast. And it's basically just an audio of my streams that I have here. So I give you even more options, and that will be something that comes up over the next. I always load my stuff onto there. It's just that sometimes I get so backed up and the timing goes on there. It's like it ain't worth. It's not worth. A lot of the stories time out, so that's why. Like for example, last week's show, you did not get audios if you listen that way. Blame me for it because I am my own one man crew. So also just a reminder, also eligible. I have no clue what we're doing this weekend. I may do I if we do a show on Saturday, I don't know what tracks we're covering yet. I'll figure that out by Thursday night. We may also have a show on Sunday because Oaklawn pushed their schedule back a day because of a winter storm that's going through there right now. So the Friday card will now be on Saturday. The Saturday card, which included the Rebel and whatever Kentucky Oaks prep race it is, they're now on Sunday, and the Sunday card is now on Monday. So they push everything back. They push a day further up a day. So, keep an eye out for also eligible. I will let you know by Thursday night. So Thursday night show, I'll have an answer for you for that. So that is it for now. Do appreciate everybody for joining me here tonight, including our spammer. Thank you for those on YouTube and X as well, and my YouTube. I mean, not my YouTube, my Twitch. Jesus Christ, I gotta give myself another one of those. But it's one of those nights. And but I do appreciate everybody who took the time to listen, no matter if it's 5 minutes or the whole show, because I'm all about getting the information out to you guys, even if it's just the audio podcast. Because yes, I would like to have you watch live, but I'm also a believer in after the fact consumption. So we're going to call it a night. I do appreciate everybody. Love y'all, and I will see you in the winner's circle as well for another edition of the Joe Quill Show. Have a great night, everybody.